There are certain albums in an artist's catalog that everybody agrees on, right? Like the obvious classics, the records that get, magazine covers, anniversary box sets, endless praise. When you think about Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, most people immediately jump to Damn the Torpedoes, maybe Full Moon Fever, even though it was a solo album. Some folks will throw in Wildflowers. That's a great album. Hardcore fans might say Hard Promises or Southern Accents, and not many people say Southern Accents, although I do love that record. This strange, fascinating record sitting right in the middle of that catalog, and it's kind of like the forgotten middle child at a family reunion. An album that quietly waited decades for people to catch up to it, and that album is Long After Dark. Probably my favorite Tom Petty album, if I'm being honest. I was the right age when it came out, and I remember WKTM in Charleston. They were playing in Columbia, I think, and they were going to send someone with 2 tickets and $200 in petty cash, and I thought that was kind of cool. Before I get started, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Sean. He's a friend of the channel, and he knows that things have been kind of rough over here at the Nostalgia Academy family lately. And he sent me a message saying, "Hey, do a video on Tom Petty. I bet you'll feel better." And I hope so. I'll let you know. But Long After Dark is one of the weirdest records in the entire Petty catalog because on paper, it should have been huge. I mean, it sounds like a boilerplate Tom Petty album, top to bottom. It came out in late 1982, during one of the hottest stretches of Tom Petty's career. I mean, the Heartbreakers had already survived label battles, lawsuits, artistic pressure, and the kind of industry nonsense that destroys a lot of bands before they hit their stride. They'd proven themselves as arena-level rock stars, really. MTV was just beginning to explode, and Tom Petty was becoming a recognizable face, and the band had just added a major piece to their puzzle in bassist and vocalist Howie Epstein. Now, to me, this was the peak lineup for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Love Ron Blair, he's a great bass player, but Howie Epstein just brought something different, and I really appreciated that. And yet somehow, Long After Dark kind of became the album people skipped over. I don't know why. And not hated, not exactly forgotten, just overlooked. I think I looked on allmusic.com. I think I got like a 3 rating. I'm like, this album is so good. It lived in the shadow of the albums around it. It was too polished for some early fans, not flashy enough to be considered one of the great giant statements for the catalog overall. It's stuck in that awkward middle ground where critics respected it but didn't obsess over it. Casual fans knew a couple songs, and longtime Petty followers kept saying, "Yeah, y'all are sleeping on this one." And I think the world slept on it. It's a really good record. Maybe they were right. I don't know. Because here's the thing about Long After Dark. It might be one of the most purely enjoyable Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers albums ever made. It's tight, it's lean, it's filled with hooks, it's moody. Sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's vulnerable, sometimes sounds like a band trying to hold on to their soul while the machine around them keeps getting louder. And if you listen closely, you can hear something else too. Pressure. A lot of pressure. By 1982, Tom Petty wasn't some scrappy underdog anymore. He'd become the Tom Petty that we knew. Expectations had changed. Success had changed the stakes, and somewhere in the middle of all that, the Heartbreakers were starting to feel the wear and tear that success can sometimes bring, and that's just a thing that happens. Because success is funny. Everybody wants it until it arrives, and suddenly every decision matters 10 times more. I think it was, who's the guy? Eddie Vedder. He was like, I'd have been just as happy staying small. Once they became big, it became a thing. Because every song matters, every chart position matters, every producer opinion matters. Every album becomes, what are you doing next? And it's going to be great, right? And not always. But for Petty, that pressure was becoming exhausting, It came to a head, of course, with Southern Accents, where he famously punched a brick wall and broke his hand. To understand Long After Dark, you really have to rewind for a minute, because the early years of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers were honestly kind of insane. When the band first arrived in the late 70s, they were this perfect collision of influences, Southern rock roots without sounding like, Lynyrd Skynyrd. British invasion obsession without sounding like the Beatles. Garage rock energy mixed with California cool. They had Bird's jangle, Stone's swagger, Dylan storytelling, funk urgency and this uniquely American sense of movement that always felt like riding down the highway. I mean, they were better than the Eagles, for God's sake. But Petty himself had this gift for making songs feel conversational, like you were just having a conversation with him. He didn't oversing. He had a weird voice also, kind of like Kevin Kinney. Just, I don't know what made him think he should be singing, but it always worked. He didn't scream for attention. He sounded like somebody telling you the truth over, a cheap cup of coffee. And then there were the Heartbreakers. For my money, Mike Campbell is the best guitarist I've ever seen live. He is amazing, and I will go to my grave thinking that when he joined Fleetwood Mac, I jumped up and down. But people always underestimate how important the band was. I mean, people know Tom Petty, but the Heartbreakers were an integral part of that. Even on his solo albums, the Heartbreakers basically played all of it. But Mike Campbell was quietly becoming one of rock's greatest secret weapon guitarists. Not flashy, never really overplaying, just endlessly tasteful. The guy could somehow make 3 notes feel emotionally devastating, and he did that a lot. And then Benmont Tench, I'm not a big keyboard fan. He brought kind of an elegance to it, and the piano, organ, all that. He could elevate songs without ever showing off. I like the little keyboard thing he does in Don't Do Me Like That. That's one of my favorite keyboard moments. But then Petty, he sat right in the center, kind of steering the ship. The first albums built momentum, right? The self-titled debut gave us American Girl, Breakdown, which is one of my favorites. And then You're Gonna Get It kind of proved they weren't a fluke. But, the next one, Damn the Torpedoes, that changed everything. Suddenly, this wasn't just a promising band. This is, one of America's great rock and roll bands. I mean, you had Refugee, Don't Do Me Like That. Even The Losers, one of my favorite songs of all time. Here Comes My Girl. I don't like songs where people kind of talk the lyrics. I give Tom a pass on that one. That's a great song. I mean, that record felt unstoppable, and there's not a bad song that I can think of on that album. But, after something like that, expectations become a little dangerous because, once you make a masterpiece, everyone kind of expects another masterpiece. I was looking up Smashing Pumpkins last night, and, after Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, they put out Adore, which is a great record. It's just not bad, but it was going to get hit in the media and by the fans because it wasn't the same thing. There's no breathing room. There's no room to experiment. Just, all right, what's next? But Petty answered with that with Hard Promises. Hard Promises is one that I think is about half great and half okay. It's a fantastic record in its own right. Maybe not as explosive as Damn the Torpedoes. The Waiting is a perfect song. I always thought that he and Chrissy Hine and the Pretenders should have done something together at some point, because that song, The Waiting, and Pretenders' song, Talk of the Town, they kind of remind me of each other a little bit. I think that'd be a great pairing. Woman in Love, that was a great song. Night Watchman, that's pretty good. Insider, that's a duet with Stevie Nicks. I know they had a hit with, Stop Dragging My Heart Around, which is great, but Insider is really good too. And importantly, it proved that Petty wasn't a one-album wonder. I mean, he was the real thing, and the band was. But behind the scenes, things were getting a little more complicated. Producer Jimmy Iovine had become a major part of their story. Now, Jimmy Iovine, he deserves enormous credit. I think that's how you pronounce it, Iovine. Jimmy Iovine, I don't know. But by the early 80s, his working relationship with Petty was getting strained. He chased perfection. And Petty chased more instinct. He just kind of wanted it to sound like what he wanted it to sound like. And sometimes those things don't work beautifully together. Sometimes they absolutely don't. You could feel a big tug of war beginning. Should the record be looser? Should it be cleaner? Should they chase hits? Things like that. Would they resist commercial expectations? I don't think so. I think they, wanted to sell stuff, but, hanging over everything at that time was MTV, because MTV kind of changed the game. Because before MTV, radio was what mattered the most. We all remember that. But now suddenly image mattered as well. Visual identity mattered, which kind of sucks for some. Can you survive in a music industry where songs are now completely visual? It's an interesting question, at least. Tom Petty turned out to be weirdly perfect for it in a weird way. He's not glamorous. He's not polished. He's a normal looking dude. He looked like a guy who just wandered into the wrong room and just accidentally became famous. He had confidence in what he did, and that spoke a lot to me as a guy who struggles with that all the time. That meant a lot to me at the time. The audiences loved him for it. That strange authenticity made him magnetic, which brings us to one major change before Long After Dark even begins. And it was a huge change. We talked about this a minute ago. The departure of bassist Ron Blair. Now, this mattered more than people probably realize. Original members changing always, it affects chemistry. It always does. Even if the public barely notices. That's where Howie Epstein enters the picture. And honestly, what a fit. I mean, he was great. He was younger than the rest of the band. And Howie brought musicality, harmony vocals, songwriting instincts, and a warmth that will become essential to later Heartbreakers music. And it's so sad that he passed away the way he did, because I don't know if he knows how much we all loved him. He was great. His harmonies alone changed the sound of the band. Suddenly things felt more layered and melodic, and Long After Dark would be the first real glimpse of what that chemistry could become. But chemistry alone doesn't guarantee success, because while the Heartbreakers were evolving musically, emotionally things were getting a little more tense. Tom Petty would later admit that he wasn't fully happy with Long After Dark. Not because it was bad, because it felt rushed, and you could kind of feel that in some of the songs. It felt compromised, like the album didn't fully get to gestate or become what it could have been. And that's fascinating to me, because fans often adore records that artists feel conflicted about. He put one out later called Let Me Up, I've Had Enough, that they did like in a week, just rushed through it. And that's one of my favorite of theirs. It's a great record. Because you hear one thing and the artist hears something else. And I totally understand that. Fans hear emotion, artists hear the compromises. They hear where they had to cut corners and hurry it up. Fans hear magic, and artists hear, what got left out. So Long After Dark is full of ghosts, songs that got left off, creative frustrations. You can almost hear the version of the record that Petty wanted living somewhere in there. But still, even the version we got is pretty damn good. In fact, I'd argue that Long After Dark might secretly be one of the most heartbreaker albums they've ever made. I mean, really, it is. It's not Petty solo sounding. It's not overly conceptual. It's just a killer rock band playing sharp, memorable songs. And the opening track tells you immediately what kind of ride it's going to be, because this is a one-story town, and it is boilerplate Tom Petty. We live in a world of AI. If you type in, make a song that sounds like Tom Petty, it's going to come out with this song. It feels like the sound of restlessness. I mean, it feels trapped. I think Will Hoge does a song called Even the River Runs Out of This Town. It's kind of the same vibe, right? Although they sound completely different. It's like somebody staring out the window, wondering if they've already missed their chance at becoming whoever they were supposed to be. And that's kind of sad. That lyric about being stuck in the same place, the same patterns, all that, it feels incredibly Tom Petty, because Tom Petty always understood movement, doing things different, trying new things. His songs are, full of escape routes, longing, people trying to outrun disappointment. And that's just, I think we can all, feel what he's trying to say. And here right from the jump, Long After Dark sounds darker than the title alone might suggest. There's urgency in the guitars. Again, Mike Campbell, that jangly sound he's got, it sounds fantastic here. Almost nervous energy. Meanwhile, Benmont Tench quietly fills in the emotional spaces in a way that only he can. And again, I don't like keyboards a lot, but I like him a lot. And Petty sounds determined, but a little tired. Really, I mean, it's a shaggy vocal. I like it a lot. There's something I love about early 80s Petty. It never sounded fake, and he never really did sound fake. His later albums, I don't like a whole lot. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff on it. At the end, he wasn't as good. To me, this was their peak. He didn't suddenly become some, chest-beating arena rock character just because the band got bigger. Even at their commercial peak, he still sounded just like a normal guy, a little vulnerable, a little worn down, a little pissed off, And maybe that's part of what makes Long After Dark age so well for me. It feels lived in. You can almost hear the emotional mileage. You can almost hear the compromises that were, done to make this record. Funny thing about One Story Town is it's not one of the famous Petty songs. I've seen him 4 times in concert. Don't think he ever played it. Casual fans probably don't know it. And it's never become, part of the classic rock stable. You'll never hear it on classic rock radio today. But among hardcore fans, people love this track. And I totally get it, because it sets the emotional tone of the whole album. even though it's not a concept album, there's a line that can be drawn through all of it. It's not going to be sunshine. It's not carefree. This is, nighttime music, and it's loneliness mixed with determination. It's somebody trying to hold on to hope without fully trusting that the hope is coming, and that's it's pretty deep, I think. And then you suddenly get the album swerves into, its biggest moment, not even up for debate. You Got Lucky. Now let's talk about this song, because You Got Lucky absolutely rules. Seriously, there are petty hits that, people respect, and then there are petty songs that people emotionally attach themselves to. You Got Lucky falls into that second category easily. There's something cool about this song, but it's hard to explain. It's mainly keyboards, which I find kind of interesting. It's got a really great guitar solo, a minimal guitar solo, but it's not cool in a manufactured way. It's not wearing sunglasses indoors cool. It's effortless. It's a little bitter. It's a little wounded, but somehow a little bit swaggering. It feels mechanical almost. You got synthesizers, like I said, creeping into the arrangement, which obviously could have aged terribly in lesser hands. This song does not even today sound like it was made in the early 80s. It still sounds fresh, which is interesting to me now that I think about it. Petty, they somehow, the Heartbreakers avoided that trap. It still sounds mysterious, and that riff, come on, it's instant recognition. I think he played this song 2 of the 4 times I saw them, and I was mad the 2 times he didn't. Mike Campbell was becoming one of the most underrated guitar players in rock history. Jimmy Page, Brian May, I'd throw Mike Campbell in there. He's that good. He just knew what the song needed. He never overcomplicated it. It never became ego-driven or anything. Lyrically, this is Petty at his best emotionally. You got lucky when I found you. It's kind of brash. I like it though. It can sound arrogant, but until you hear how Petty sings it, there's sadness in there, and it almost feels like he says that, but feels the opposite. It's more like, I got lucky when you found me. That's how I feel with my marriage. So, but underneath, you can hear the pain. That emotional contradiction is what makes the song work. He was incredible at making emotional complexity without sounding overly literary about it. He didn't sound like an egghead trying to talk down to you. It was side note. When I was in college, I had, some English professor make us listen to Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen. Tom Petty's better than Bruce Springsteen. But he made us, write an essay on the song, and I was like, and I wrote in the essay, I was like, it is what it is, but Tom Petty's better. I got a C because of that. You have to play the game, I guess. But the You Got Lucky video was pure early MTV weirdness in the best way possible. We all remember it. It's post-apocalyptic. It's Mad Max-ish. With the dusty, wasteland imagery, and whenever he kicks over the slot machine and starts shooting it, and then the drummer, he's just funny in the video. I just like it. It was recognizable. It was memorable to an entirely new audience. For younger fans discovering music through television, that mattered a lot because them, ZZ Top, Journey, and others, they upped their game incredibly because they embraced MTV, and it just worked. The album, or the song itself, it performed well enough, not Damn the Torpedoes well, not Cultural Takeover well, which probably added a little frustration, to the whole project, I guess. Because from the outside, everything looked successful, but inside the band, not quite so simple. There was increasing exhaustion. They've been touring forever. Creative disagreements, friction with the producer and stuff. And Tom Petty started to feel boxed in by the expectations of making, a successful second or third album, basically. The first 2 were fine, but basically Damn the Torpedoes and the one after, those were the 2 major milestones. And then this one just kind of, was different. But then you got Change of Heart, and I'm not going to go over every song, but just my favorites. What a song. Honestly, this one doesn't sound so much like them at production-wise anyways. It's got an interesting guitar. I don't think it's a flange, but something's going on with the guitar that just makes it sound cool, and it doesn't sound dated. But this might be one of the most underrated singles that he ever released. Change of Heart should probably be remembered alongside the bigger classics more than it is, because this thing it's loaded. It's pure Heartbreakers chemistry. Mike Campbell, he throws the perfect little guitar accents everywhere. It's really good. And it feels painfully human because it's about emotional distance and that awful moment when somebody changes and you realize the love doesn't always disappear dramatically. It just kind of sometimes, fades. One day you wake up and you're like, what happened? I love that. He doesn't over-explain it. He just lets the little details kind of do the emotional work. I really like that. Now, another one that I like a whole lot is We Stand a Chance. We Stand a Chance is one of those that I think it was a single, maybe. Because of Long After Dark has a song that feels like a tiny bit of, sunshine sneaking through the clouds. It might be We Stand a Chance, but even here, Tom Petty can't fully let the optimism take over because there's hope in the song for sure, but it feels cautious, like somebody saying, maybe this thing could work if we don't screw it up, and I think we've all experienced that at some point. And honestly, that emotional reaction is one of the reasons that his songs age so well. He rarely wrote in absolutes. Love was never perfect. And he wrote, I guess, love songs, but it was never perfect. There was always some waves, always some rocks ahead. But this track feels a little tighter than some of what surrounds it. But it's not lightweight. There's still, some tension underneath it, a nervous energy. And the Heartbreakers, they're just locked in on this song. It's great. But what struck me listening to this album recently is how efficient they become. The band knew exactly who they were. No wasted moments. No trying to chase trends too aggressively. Again, it's one of those that saved itself from sounding like it's from the 80s. You could play that album today and it holds up at 85%. And that's harder to do than it sounds. But, Petty, him and some others, they kind of walked through that era without losing themselves. And that's something to be said for that. Now, before I finish, I got to talk about probably my favorite Tom Petty song of all time. I know it wasn't a single, and he never did this one live when I saw him, but I know he did it on Farm Aid one year, and I just almost melted because I love this song. It's called Straight Into Darkness. Okay, so let me talk about what might secretly be the masterpiece on this album. And if you're a longtime Petty fan, chances are this song means something to you. It's one of those songs that people quietly treasure. It's not flashy, not overplayed. Don't think I ever heard it on the radio. And it's not the first song that casual listeners would even know, but emotionally devastating if it hits you in the right time of your life. There's loneliness all over this thing. Uncertainty, but resilience. Petty had this way of writing songs that acknowledge pain without surrendering to it. And I always loved that. That's such an important distinction because these aren't hopeless songs. They're wounded, yeah, but not hopeless. There's still some hope at the end of the day. They're songs about people just trying to stay upright, just trying to make it to the next day, trying to make sense of disappointment, and Straight Into Darkness might be one of the best examples of that entire philosophy. And I try to live that way. When things get tough, it could always be worse, usually. Musically, the atmosphere is gorgeous. Mike Campbell's guitar work here is phenomenal. Top shelf, not flashy. Every little phrase feels intentional. Meanwhile, Benmont Tench, he kind of paints emotion all around it. Seriously, Benmont is one of those musicians that people don't talk nearly enough about. He's done work with a lot of people, like Lone Justice, for example. I think he was all over that record. Without him, the emotional texture of the Heartbreakers would change dramatically. I think his keyboard work often functions like the glue that holds it all together, which is weird because, again, I don't really like keyboards. But if it disappeared, you'd feel the loss immediately. And Petty's vocal here, man, he sounds vulnerable. I have loved this song since the day I heard it. There's weariness in the performance, like somebody still hopeful, but carrying the scars of what's come before. I think one reason this song resonates so deeply with us longtime fans, it feels adult, right? This might be the first adult song that I like. I've not told the story here, but I wanted to learn to play guitar because of Jessie's Girl by Rick Springfield. I gravitated towards Telecasters because of Chrissie Hynde, and that's what she played. I love her. So, but this song, I think I have to listen to that. This is probably the first time I heard a song. I thought, man, that's adult material here. And not in a bad way, just emotionally. But Petty could turn that emotional complexity into a song that still sounds amazing, today. And that's a gift. It really is. There's certain people that once they're gone, I really, really miss. And the list is pretty short. Mitch Hedberg, the comedian, really miss him. Scott Hutchinson, lead singer of Frightened Rabbit, really miss him. Tom Petty, when he passed, it was a shock, obviously, to everybody. But I don't know. I felt it was too soon, obviously. But I don't miss him as much as others, and I don't know how I should feel about that. I feel like I should, because he was a true American gem. Better than Springsteen, I think. Better than Mellencamp. And they were kind of all mixed together. I thought he was the underdog. He was the replacements before the replacements. I mean, he was fighting the record labels, not making a scene, but he just didn't want to get, screwed. So why did this album get overlooked for so long? And honestly, maybe timing? We've talked about this before. Timing can be brutal, because Long After Dark had the bad luck of existing between their great moments, right? Before it, Damn the Torpedoes, Hard Promises. After it, Southern Accents, which was big because they worked with the guy from Eurythmics. It was a big album. Things like Southern Accents, the huge late 80s success, the Traveling Wilburys came, not too long after that. So it kind of fell in between that and Full Moon Fever. It came out, completely blew it all up. So this kind of just, fell in a spot where, that's tough company. That's really tough company. And if you're not the blockbuster, sometimes history quietly shuffles you to the side, which is too bad, because fans tend to find the truth eventually, right? And over time, something interesting happened, because people started revisiting Long After Dark. And instead of hearing a lesser Petty album, again, it is completely by the numbers, I'll grant you that, but I'm okay with that. People heard a really strong album. Maybe not a towering masterpiece, but deeply consistent, emotionally pretty good, with great songs. A little bit of filler here and there, but, I can live with that. And honestly, it's one of the most replayable albums I think they ever made. I mean, I could listen to this 3 times in a row and not complain at all. There's no giant overreaches, no crazy experimental stuff like what would happen on Southern Accents. There's no filler really that drags it down. There are filler songs, yeah, but I mean, it's just a tight made record. It's just pretty damn good. And maybe that's why longtime fans defend it, like me, so fiercely. Like, if somebody asked me, give me your top 3 Tom Petty albums, I might be hard pressed to put it number 1. I really like this record. It feels personal. It feels human. It feels rushed. And that's kind of cool in its own way. It feels like an album made by people carrying some emotional weight from what came before it. They were working hard back then. They're not kids anymore, but they're not quite legends either. I even love the album cover. That red with the teal. That's awesome. And now the Howie Epstein factor, I just want to talk about him for a little bit, because his arrival mattered a lot. Like I said, he brought the harmonies and stuff, and it just stunk that he got into heroin. He became an addict. And that's just, it always makes me think, what could have happened, what could have been if he'd have still been around. But we can't underestimate what the period meant culturally. I mean, 82 was weird. Rock music was changing. Old rules were out the door. No longer could you just have a hit on the radio and that'd be fine, because now you had to have an image as well. You had some artists that took full advantage of that and only became an image. Say Culture Club, right? I mean, I don't know if we didn't have the image, they wouldn't have made it. I don't think. And they were fine. Flock of Seagulls, kind of the same way. So you had artists that became big because of their image and wouldn't have if not for the image. And then you had artists that had to kind of manipulate and kind of walk that minefield. And I think the Heartbreakers did a really admirable job without looking goofy. Like the Cars. I love the Cars, but the video for You Might Think is kind of embarrassing. Let's just admit it. It's a great video. It's fun, but it kind of cheapens the product to me. Tom Petty didn't do that. They trying to think of all their videos. They were pretty consistent all along the way. Most of them just performance clips. I get that, but they were good. It always felt like Tom Petty kind of accidentally walked into this, but it was totally deliberate, obviously. I mean, he kind of had a plan. If you ever get to see the movie Running Down a Dream, that's what it's called. It is worth a watch. There's a lot of good stuff in that. So this is always kind of dangerous territory with Tom Petty fans, because everybody's got opinions. They're not an alternative band, and most of my work on this channel covers college rock and stuff, but there was nobody more alternative than Tom Petty. I defy you to give me someone. Like I said, they were kind of the replacements before the replacements, just without being snotty. Everybody's got opinions, everybody's got their sacred cows. But for me, Long After Dark belongs comfortably in that second tier of truly excellent Petty records. Just below the absolute Mount Rushmore stuff, Maybe not Damn the Torpedoes level, but I think it's more consistent. Maybe not Wildflowers emotionally, but it's got enough. And maybe not Full Moon Fever hit-wise or culturally. But if you played the two side by side, I'd probably pick Long After Dark. I really would. And I love Full Moon Fever. I love Jeff Lynne and his production and all that, but it's a little overproduced. But it's great, obviously. Depending on the mood, it might be one of the most enjoyable listens in their catalog, really, because, like I said, it's a little paint by number. It's a little boilerplate, but that kind of just satisfies me. It's a very satisfying album. It flows beautifully. The songs hold up, and there's maturity in it. And because albums about uncertainty, they tend to age well, life kind of catches up to them. And I really do think that. The older you get, the more this album makes sense. You start understanding the emotional weather. You start understanding uncertainty, and that just comes with age and hopefully wisdom. Guys, get wise, you know what I'm saying? The effort of staying hopeful when things get complicated, that's a hard thing to do in these times we live in, and that's what Long After Dark kind of feels about. If Damn the Torpedoes sounds like ambition exploding into possibility, then Long After Dark kind of sounds like the morning after, the morning after success, the pressure, exhaustion, uncertainty, and all that, but also resilience, getting back up off the mat when you've been knocked down. It's about hope refusing to disappear completely, and that to me means a lot. Maybe that's why it resonates with me all these years later, because eventually most people will find out what that feels like, and we all have, right? You got to keep moving. You got to keep trying. You got to keep digging, and it's hard right now. I get that, but I think Tom Petty kind of hit it on the nail back in 1982, and maybe that's the best way to think about Long After Dark. It's not as the forgotten Petty album, and not as the overlooked one, but the album that waited patiently for listeners to kind of catch up. It was made in a time when it was made, and it just took this much time for it to finally make sense. And maybe Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers knew all along that some records would just take time, Long After Dark, if you will. Well, really, that's all I got on this one. This one went a lot longer than I thought it would. I want to thank Sean again, and I do feel a lot better. Things in the Nostalgia Academy family still going rough. If you guys are, the thoughtful type, how about think of us? If you would, consider subscribing. It does help the channel, and it just makes me feel good. When I see the numbers go up, that just makes me feel good that there's, people out there willing to listen to what's happening on my end of the world. Also, before I go, if you could, there's another guy that I chat with on here sometimes. Chris Head of the Honchos. He does live music, I think in Nashville. He's a good guy. This coming up weekend, go find a live act, just anybody local, and support them. Even if you don't like them, just show the support, because that's how you fight this AI nonsense. Is you go out there, put your feet in a rock club and rock on. That's how we win in the end. And till next time, I love you guys. Y'all take care.